Neighbors can be a real pain sometimes because they can be inconsiderate. There are many stories online about terrible neighbors, but Christina's situation was different. After moving from Kansas City to California, she quickly realized her neighbors were trouble. They constantly blocked her driveway with a large boulder. But Christina, a geologist, was about to teach them a lesson. People can annoy their neighbors in many ways, like being loud at night or being nosy. Most bad neighbors are just rude and thoughtless. If no one stands up to them, they'll keep doing it even if people have already complained. Taking a stand isn't always easy, but sometimes it has to be done. Christina had dealt with difficult neighbors before. When she moved into her new home while studying for her third degree, she didn't expect any problems. She was concerned when first and second year students moved in next door, but at first, everything seemed fine. Christina and her roommates were relieved that their new neighbors seemed okay, until they started blocking their driveway. When finding her new roommates, Christina had been very fortunate indeed. She and her roommates respected each other, including their quirks, schedules, and personal spaces. This avoided conflicts about noise, chores, or any of the typical issues with roommates. This was something they all realized and remarked upon more than once. All of them knew how lucky they were to have found such respectful and like-minded people. The arrangement worked so well they lived together for years. Once a year, their lease agreement came up, and every year Christina breathed a sigh of relief as all her roommates would renew their lease, happy to continue with the current arrangement. This led to them living together for 3 blissful years. When a group of undergraduate students moved in next door, Christina was understandably wary at first. However, it seemed that she'd been lucky yet again, as everything was fine. What neither she nor her roommates knew was that this was simply the calm before the storm. "I never really had any issue until about a week and a half ago," Christina wrote in a social media post. This is actually the second time this has happened. It is quite common for undergraduates to host raucous parties more often than graduate students do. One reason is that grad students have gotten it out of their systems and are more used to the freedoms of living alone. In her post, Christina stated that they've generally been pretty considerate with noise and keeping people out of their yard. Then the boulder appeared. One night, while her neighbors were having a party, Christina noticed that one of her neighbor's guests had blocked their driveway with their car. Christina, not being unreasonable, went over and politely asked if they not block the driveway. "I went over to ask that people stay out of our backyard," Christina wrote, and noticed that a car was blocking us in, so I asked that it be moved by 7 a.m. and left a note. When she got up the next morning, the car was no longer there. However, in its place was a huge boulder. Christina worked hard at her studies, so at the end of the day, she loved nothing more than some peace and quiet reading a book. Sharing a neighborhood with many other noisy students was tricky, but so far all had gone well. Despite this challenge, Christina managed to be studious and find time to relax in relative peace and quiet. It didn't seem that anything was about to change. However, she had no idea just what a rocky road lay ahead of her and her neighbors. Christina woke up early one morning, got ready to go out, only to discover that once she reached her car, there was a large boulder near her tire blocking her in. As it would turn out, this wasn't some random boulder. It was clear that the neighbors had felt that the rock was in their way, so they decided to move it instead. However, they had chosen to move the rock to Christina's side of the fence. Needless to say, she immediately went to knock on her neighbor's door, but to no avail. It was also not just some random stone. Due to the nature of their parties, parking was often a problem for her neighbors. As a result, they were scared of someone damaging their fencing and causing them to pay for repairs. To address this, they used this boulder to create a buffer around the fence, hoping to protect it from bad drivers and those who struggled to park properly. This wasn't a bad idea, and so far, there had been no problems. While there had never been an issue with the rock before, today there was. By the look of it, someone had felt that the rock was in their way and moved it to make their life simpler. However, they had caused a problem for Christina. Whoever had moved it didn't seem concerned about the fact that it was on Christina's side of the fence and had unthinkingly dumped it straight into Christina's path. To make it worse, her neighbors had agreed the night before not to block her in. But when she found her car blocked, she realized the problem was bigger than she thought. Christina couldn't move the rock by herself, so she went to the neighbor's house for help, but no one answered. Eventually, Christina got help to move the rock back, but things got worse. Her rude neighbors threw a wild party one night. She asked them to make sure no cars blocked her driveway in the morning, but when she woke up, the boulder was there again. This time, she knew it was on purpose as payback for her request. She knew that if she moved the rock, it would end up in her driveway again. Her neighbors had underestimated her. Christina was small, so they thought she couldn't do anything about it. But they forgot she was a geologist with access to a powerful auto chipper that could pulverize stone in minutes. Fed up, Christina decided to send a clear message. At 7:30 a.m., she hauled out her loud stone drilling machine and turned it up to the highest setting. She started breaking the boulder into pieces, knowing the noise would make her neighbors' post-party morning miserable. As a geology PhD student, she had access to heavy machinery and knew how to use it. Wearing protective gear, she got to work and solved the problem like a boss. Who said it would be impractical to pursue geology? Well, nobody is saying that now, especially not her neighbors. Before long, that pesky boulder was just a pile of rubble, which she kindly swept over to her neighbors. Despite the size of it, Christina successfully chipped away at it, and she did it with a satisfying smile. She shared her updates on the story via Twitter, and her tweet was shared over 10,000 times by the next morning and liked by more than 50,000 tweeters. It seemed her gratifying post was more relatable than she thought. Christina is incredibly intelligent and knew that if she was going to cause so much noise, she had to do it within acceptable hours. As the noise ordinance stops at 7 a.m., she started at 7:30 and worked on the boulder for 4 hours. Get yourself a decent pair of headphones, pipe in some good music, fuel it with tiny person passive-aggressive rage, and you'd be surprised how quickly a large boulder can be demolished. 4 hours with minimal breaks, she wrote. Christina could have waited until later in the afternoon to create a huge noise so as not to wake her neighbors. But why not get back at them by blasting the rock to bits early in the morning as they're trying to sleep off the effects of the previous night's festivities? Christina could now sit up and relax while taking pride in her handiwork. Update. All is quiet, she wrote. Neighbors have deserted the premises. I am thoroughly enjoying a cup of tea. Her pranksters probably didn't think it would turn out like this for them. After a job well done, we can only imagine how silly her neighbors must have felt as they brought this upon themselves. Neighbor update. I have made eye contact with 2 of the guys. One gave me a nod and the other looked at me with wide eyes like I'm a mad woman. I like to think that we have reached a mutual understanding. After Christina destroyed the boulder and gave the boys an early morning wake-up call, she sat down to enjoy a cup of tea. What made things even sweeter was the fact that she was able to kick back knowing that these rowdy students were going to think twice from now on. Considering that this was the second time that Christina's car had been blocked in, she was happy to see that her neighbors might have finally gotten the hint. Knowing this was a unique story, Christina decided to share it live on her Twitter account. She knew her story would cause a buzz online, and soon thousands of people were curious about why the students blocked her car. Before long, her updates were retweeted, and the story went viral. Whether it was Christina's bold attitude or her tweets, people loved the story of her funny revenge. As a volcanologist, Christina knew a lot about boulders and had access to a loud auto chipper. At 7:30 a.m., she started making noise because she had no issues with her neighbors until about a week and a half before when they blocked her car to keep the boulder out of their driveway. Christina thought only a few geologist friends would find it amusing. Her revenge was subtle but loud, clever but funny. She waited until 7:30 a.m. to start the noise to stay within legal bounds since the noise ordinance allowed it after 7 o'clock a.m. People loved the rivalry story and started tweeting at Christina, asking why her neighbors did this. Do they have a problem with you? I've never heard of someone putting a rock in front of a random person's car for fun, one person asked. Surprisingly, Christina answered most questions, explaining her neighbors' actions and sarcastically describing herself as a horrid person for asking them to move their cars by 7 a.m. after a party. Christina received a lot of praise. The only thing I'm disappointed about is that you didn't start at 5 o'clock a.m., one person wrote. She didn't expect such a response but was overwhelmed by the attention. She gained hundreds of followers and hoped to inspire young girls to become scientists.